I met the GPs who are what is now the Modality Partnership probably about 15 years ago when they were looking at PMS, and was very interested in their vision and what they were attempting to do some time ago now, and maintained a level of contact and saw how they developed, and that's the kind of story I'm going to share with you in this session, really, is the development of that business. But they took a very, I suppose, a significant strategic decision a couple of years ago, where they wanted to move from effectively their Birmingham-based business to become the ambitions to be the first national GP partnership. And I liked the sound of that vision very much. And so I joined as an employee a couple of years ago. It started with two practices merging back in 2009. And this period is very much a Birmingham-based period of organic growth, for want of a better way, development and mergers with other practices. And then here is the sort of decision to look to expand with like-minded partners across the country. And so that's only really been in our first sort of step outside of the Birmingham area was in April of this year. Having started with a Birmingham-based business, we expanded into Hull. We have 60,000 patients in Hull across, I think, 6 practices. We expanded into Wokingham. We've got 25,000 patients in Wokingham. And our recent merger is with a group of 7 practices in Skipton and Keighley. So we now have 75,000 patients that we look after in that sort of North Yorkshire region. It's one of the reasons why I found collaboration as a slightly difficult title in this, is that we are not a collaboration, we're not a federation, we're not a collective, we're not an alliance, we're not any words that you might use to describe a set of organisations coming together for a common purpose. We are a single GP partnership. That's what we are. We're a GP partnership. We're not what might be considered a wider private sector entity. We are simply a large general practice, just quite a lot larger than most of you will probably have experienced so far. But I don't think by any stretch of the imagination over the next 5 to 10 years that we will be the only one. We imagine that there will be others. So we are made up of practices and partners who were in GP practices, and we're very strongly bound into that NHS ethos. That is where we come from. That is what we are looking to do, is we are continuing to look to deliver great quality primary care through our NHS contracts. We've just got perhaps some broader ambitions because of the scale. Within Birmingham itself, the scale has brought with it opportunities to develop beyond that primary care range. We now provide 12 ologies to our patients across Birmingham. I'm told, but again, you know, I need independent fact checking, that we are the largest provider of dermatology services in Europe because essentially our business will provide dermatology to Birmingham. Okay, it's done out of general practices, but operated by us. It's operated by GPs with a special interest, but overseen and supported by consultants at our local acute hospital. It's not something that we are doing in competition with the system in any way. It's very much cooperation and support from our hospital to make sure what can be done within the community is done within the community, and what needs to be seen in hospital is seen in hospital. And that's very much, if there is a sense of collaboration within our arrangement, it's very much collaboration within the wider system. We feel it's very important that primary care has a voice, but we also recognise from a system perspective perhaps that general practice is a bit fragmented. There's significant variation, And that's one of the things that, as a larger organisation, we look to minimise as much as we possibly can. So we've got 800 plus staff now, and in all our mergers, we have not made anyone redundant. Okay, that is not what we are about as an NHS business. We are now 100 partners. That's a lot. It makes for an interesting dynamic. You're pretty sure you're all very familiar with primary care, and having essentially 100 bosses and operating and finding a means to incorporate all of those opinions and views on the way things should develop, that's interesting. It's a challenge, one we embrace willingly. We believe in the partnership model. Be aware that our partners are on the front line delivering services directly to patients. If we are not making their lives easier, they are in the position actually to say this isn't working, we need to change it. We're on the GP resilience framework for London. So we've worked with a number of vulnerable practices in London, and we see some really worrying dynamics that are happening not just in London actually, but across the piece. I mean, it's surprisingly common now to go into general practice and find the partners in general practice earning less than their salary GPs and certainly locums. You will recognise that general practice has a cost ceiling. It's a fixed priced, population based contract, and pretty much the risk is all on the downside. If we don't claim, if we don't report, we don't get the money. One of the things that we've found that hits general practice around resilience is practice management, and a good practice manager. That actually can be a significant point of vulnerability for general practice. The role of a practice manager, the level of expertise that we expect now within practice management is pretty enormous. And so those are the sort of areas of coming together and working at scale that we are hopefully looking to try and create some resilience within our business. So why are we doing it? It isn't just to survive. It isn't in any way just to survive. What we are interested in and believe is that actually general practice, primary care forms, is part of, if you're looking at an accountable care system, it really is going to be the bedrock. It is going to be what makes accountable care systems work. A really solid general practice, and as far as I'm aware, not being a clinician, but the research suggests that really good primary care is what's needed. What we have to do is potentially remove some of that variation. So what we were looking to do is preserve the best of primary care, but recognise that, we need to change, do things slightly different. Actually try and do it. Get out there, try and make a difference, do things, be innovative. Some of that stuff we're going to get wrong, but the only way to learn is to actually try it, work it, make mistakes, correct, and keep proving. And in expanding our partnership, it's not just a business, it is a sense of family. The partners are all in it together. They have joint and several legal liability, so that's a pretty significant issue. So there's a level of trust and cooperation that has to come within that area. So we are looking to future-proof. It's nice to be one of the early pioneers. It does give you some clout in the sense that people have taken notice of us and what we're trying to do. One of our key motivations here is to grow, but not at any cost. We're not about merging or hoovering up single practices all over the country so we can just get a list size number that gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. I guess it comes down to something like the primary care home, those kind of 30 to 50,000 units. In our experience in Birmingham, we made a significant change to our business structure when we were about 40 to 50,000, and we found that significantly beneficial. And those are the sorts of numbers that we're looking at within a given locality. So we are committed to share amongst ourselves and, outside the learning that we've had in terms of taking ourselves forward. It is certainly easier in our organisation because we're all in it together. There's no loss of, intellectual property or potential cost or anything. We're actually sharing within the same set of walls. And the partnership model brings with it a financial commitment, as we refer to as real skin in the game, because I might make mistakes in trying to develop the business, but I'm still going to get my salary. But if my mistakes cost the business money, that's effectively costing partners money. Okay, there's no deficit that they can run. They're either getting income or they're not. Okay, so they're absolutely taking a significant financial risk through this process. They're in this for the long term, and they've got their own personal finances in this. And in order for that to happen, we've got to have like-mindedness amongst our partners. They have to share the same vision. They have to have an agreed way forward. And so that's the way we develop and the way we think is not, by no stretch of imagination, do we envisage that we will be merging with every single practice across the country. That's highly, highly unlikely. So this is where we see our journey. It's very much an evolution. It's a development from two practices that started to merge, or that merged, and then other local practices see some successes from that, want to be a part of it. And here we're looking at 7 individual practices where really, in a pure sense, we just bolted them on. But when you're within that single business, there's an opportunity then to look at the teams, the groups of people that you have, and actually do things in a slightly different way. And one of the things that triggered that for us was the Prime Minister's Challenge Fund, where we were successful, and we built a call centre. Okay, so we transferred people, our staff, partly our staff and partly others, into a call centre that we operate. One of the things I should say is nobody gave us any money to build a great new call centre warehouse. Everything that we've done has to be done within the existing constraints of the GMS contract within our existing premises. We've also moved into that extended primary care, which started with things like enhanced services and other developments within from our CCG, and grateful to our commissioners for commissioning those, and then extended with the Vanguard. And then, increasingly we'll be looking at things like population health management. But having done this in Birmingham, can't we take what we've learned in Birmingham and the skill sets and the various knowledge that we've got and transmit that into other areas? So briefly on our structure, up until sort of April of this year, we only had to worry about Birmingham. So we just had a board, that our GPs sort of were elected onto with some management support, and we've developed all of these things, this central business support, so we can provide centrally a level of expertise. Forgive me, I'm a chartered accountant. I'm a very highly qualified finance individual. It is highly unlikely any individual practice could maintain my level of expertise within their business at any great degree. But I'm available for every single one and all of our business. Similarly with our HR support. We are working through we've been through an upheaval of moving from a single practice to a larger practice organisation within a locality, and trying to understand how much can be done at practice level and how much can be centralised. But now that sort of centralised function in Birmingham is undergoing its own changes, because it's got to work out, okay, how much of that can be done or should be done at a divisional level or within Hull, say, compared to Birmingham. And we are learning by doing. We haven't got the answers to it. When we start talking about changing roles in the workforce, centralisation, maybe standardisation and even specialisation where people are picking up particular roles, one of the issues is that the impact that it has on your staff. This is not a self-reported survey from our staff. This is a independent survey of our staff in terms of what do they feel about the work environment and the management support out of the changes that we've made. For me, that makes pretty good reading given the level of change that our staff have experienced. We think part of that is what we're trying to do is respond positively to the pressures that our staff and the business and general practice is facing, to try and say stretching out for the future and trying delivering it and maintain a level of control as best we can in that kind of environment. Speaking to a GP who then fortunately decided to join, he says, one of the reasons why I joined is you've given me hope. And I said, oh, I almost teared up. But it feels positive, and that is the transition. And one of the things for those of you who are actively in general practice and perhaps feel a bit, battened down by some of the pressures, I think there are opportunities here for us as general practice to actually push the agenda, seize the agenda, and get primary care more into the heart of the NHS where it should be.